here participating in Purple Points. So glad to have you here. And today I have a very special guest who I'm honored to have had the opportunity to know over the course of some years. I have today Golda Smith here with us on Purple Points. She is the creative genius behind the Fit Mommy blog, which if you have not seen the blog, if you've not followed her on Instagram, you probably should. There are some really inspirational things that she's doing, and her story and testimony is pretty powerful. So if I were you, I'd go over, after you watch the interview, log on to the Fit Mommy blog. That's goldasmith.com, Fit Mommy blog. And without too much ado, I'd like to say hello to you, Ms. Golda Smith. How are you?
Hello, Akil. I'm doing absolutely awesome. Thank you for asking, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion. I'm so excited.
Me too. Me too. I'm excited too. And, the first question I typically ask is when you see or hear the color purple, what generally comes to mind?
I'm just happy. I'm happy. Like if I'm scrolling through the channels and I see it, I'll just watch it. It doesn't matter where it is in a movie. I'll watch it. I can say that I've seen the movie, I don't even know, at least 50 times, if not more. So it is my favorite movie. And I was so tickled when you asked me about it. I'm like, did he know that's my favorite movie? And you didn't, but it is.
No, I didn't. And I'm thinking of different conversations we've had, and I don't know that we've had a conversation about it, but that's good to know. Things just come together when they're supposed to, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I've asked other people as I've talked to them is, we talk about the issues in the film and what people think about or particular themes that relate to today. And so one of the things that I think is sort of untalked about, or not talked about enough, I should say, is, just the whole idea of mental health. So when you watch the movie, I'm going to try and connect this to some of the things that you do. When you watch the movie, what do you think of in terms of how would Celie, the main character, benefit from, doing some self-care or other things that could really help her in terms of her mental health?
Gosh. Self-care is of the utmost importance, and she could have definitely benefited from it in helping her, I guess, find her voice a lot sooner, having the courage to leave that relationship a lot sooner than she did. And just, again, being able to speak up for herself and let her voice be heard when it was being silenced, being beat out, literally beat out of her. And so just the fact that she, learned how to read and then eventually got the strength to leave. Those little things were acts of self-care. Building relationships with women, she didn't trust men. Building relationships with the women in her life was also an act of self-care. But again, learning how to do those things sooner in life would have probably enabled her to, again, leave the relationship sooner than she did. Fortunately, she was not killed in a relationship, as a lot of other women sadly are.
That's very true. So one of the things I think about sometimes is just how impactful that movie is. Like you said, is your favorite movie. And so outside of the whole sort of cerebral kind of conversation we could have, what do you think sticks for people when they watch this movie? Like, why do you watch it whenever you see it? And how come you've seen it like 50 times, as you were saying? What is it about this movie?
I guess how everything comes together, the music, the celebration of food, as unhealthy as a lot of it is, but the music, the church, the simplicity of life. Yeah. So many things.
That's a good point. And so one of the things I was thinking about when we talked is you were saying that you watched this with your children, your chocolate drops, as you talked to them. So have you ever talked to your kids about any particular scene or themes or ideas in the movie, and what made you have that conversation if you did?
Well, it's my daughter. My son is like, he could care less, but my daughter, who's 12, I surprisingly find that she loves the movie as much as I do. And so if she's scrolling through the channels and she sees it, she'll be the first one to let me know. And she particularly likes the scenes where Celie's discovered the letters from Nettie, and she's reading them, and they're going back and forth between the scenes, and she really likes that. And she'll talk about Mr.'s mistreatment of Celie and why is he doing that. And so we do talk about valuing yourself, knowing your self-worth, and not allowing anyone to devalue you or to silence your voice. Be heard, and don't ever be afraid to speak up, to speak for yourself, to speak for someone else, but definitely never be afraid to speak for yourself when you are being mistreated.
Those are powerful lessons. I think just generally speaking, but particularly so in the context of, this political moment with Black Lives Matter and all the things that are happening in our social space nowadays.
Yeah, and just growing up as a young girl who's, a tween. I can't stand that term. I don't know why, but but just, in the middle school age, and in dealing with the issues of middle schoolers and feeling awkward in your body, and just learning to adjust to growth in areas, just being able to place boundaries around yourself and to protect your space, and to, again, not allow anyone to intrude upon that for any reason at all, and not being afraid to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that, back up.
Right. And I think that's, a critical period in a lot of young people's lives, particularly young girls. A lot of what scholars and, just parents talk about is the fact that, that's the peak years of your self-esteem. And generally, if you don't have those positive reinforcements of who you are, self-worth, knowledge of self, that's when the self-esteem begins to plummet. So, that sounds like a really powerful intervention, on top of just, having fun with your kids.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I was, thinking about when I thought about this interview was, if you have sort of no reference with self-care, like I'm thinking of some of the things that you show on your blog and on Instagram, some of those yoga poses are not easy to do.
All
so
right.
How does one come into that knowledge? If your family, as a random example, let's say their idea of relaxing is, a couple pork chops, some steak and some ribs, and, going to sleep. How do you even have a conversation about yoga, eating healthy, having kale as a staple in your diet? How does that even start?
Well, it certainly wouldn't start with them because they have absolutely no reference. So you look to other people who are already doing those things that you want to emulate, and you reach out to them. If they're not reachable, then, you just kind of shadow them and you kind of do what they do, or you have to do your homework. You have to, get up and not be intimidated by just stepping out there. 'Cause I have people ask me that all the time. Like, I'm intimidated when I go in the gym, or I'm intimidated about doing yoga. How do I start? Where do I start? Well, you have to start somewhere. And I always tell people the same thing. None of us were born knowing how to do any of those yoga poses you see me doing. None of us. We have to learn. And the same thing with me. And I just did a Google search and, I found one person that I was inspired by, and I started following them. And then that led me to another person. And then next thing I know, I'm a certified personal trainer. And then, it just builds one on top of the other. So you have to identify a person or a group of people who are already doing the things that you want to do, and just, put yourself in that circle, maybe not physically, but definitely, I can't even find the right words now, but yeah, just start connecting with like-minded people, and just keep learning. And eventually you will become the person that those unhealthy family members, they start coming to for advice. Because I remember when I started changing my eating habits, my family's from the Caribbean. So it was like rice and stewed something every night with some fried plantain and, oh my God, the fresh baked bread every weekend. And when I changed my eating habits, it was like, oh, you're the healthy eater, you're this, you're that. And then I noticed that a couple years later, they're asking me, to give them some of my healthy food. And so it eventually will rub off. They might be very resistant in the beginning because you're doing something new, and that's okay. Let them be resistant. If they're that interested, they will come around. If they're not, then, God bless them and move on. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Everyone's not going to support you, and they don't have to. That doesn't mean that you stop doing what you need to do for yourself.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I think, sometimes when it comes to the diet, the body, self-care, we sometimes forget those pearls of wisdom that you're offering. And so sometimes, even though it may seem extremely unrelated, when I think of The Color Purple, Celie, and just some of the female characters in general, this whole notion that self-care is outside of what they should be doing is something that I think the film really speaks to, and probably the novel more so, but definitely something that is, like you're saying, something we have to seek out and begin to create those networks. As you were talking, I was thinking about Celie in a yoga class. Like, how would Celie get to yoga? And so I thought about her relationship with Suge, her relationship with Oprah Winfrey's character. The name escapes me. Sophia. How can I forget Sophia? So I think about those relationships, and in those spaces, she does create community. And so her life is like a metaphor for how you move to those changes. Like, you become the person you want to be by sort of slowly evolving. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's just about being consistent with it and knowing that you deserve it, even though in the moment it might not feel like it. And in the moment it really, really hurts. And you might just want to say, forget it. I just want to give up. That
makes a lot of sense. So sort of related to the movie again, are there any characters outside of sort of the main characters, like your Celies, your Shugs, and even Sophia, that, sort of connect with you?
Some of the ladies in the juke joint that were kind of giving Celie the eye when Suge was singing to her. Okay. Growing up as a dark-skinned girl, I was often teased for my dark skin. And so I can relate to Celie. I can identify with those mean girls. I call them mean girls because we have them all around us. So I can identify with those mean girls, and just the jealousy they were probably feeling in that moment. And let's see, who else?
What about Squeak? Remember her?
Oh gosh, yes, Squeak is hilarious, her voice. But I loved her as well towards the end, where she finally stood up and she's like, my name's not Squeak, it's Mary Agnes. It's like, oh my God, that's so awesome. And her husband, or live-in man, whatever they were, he didn't even know that. And so for her to say that, I thought that was really powerful.
Wow. Yeah, I think that, sometimes as films age, sometimes we forget how there's these really inspiring moments for different audiences. And The Color Purple certainly has pop culture references that have stood the test of time. But I think you're spot on when you talk about the agency that some of the characters have. So if you were to watch this film with a group of young people, specifically young girls, how would you sort of frame what it is you're about to watch? How would you introduce it to them?
Oh, good Lord. Young girls. Well, I would definitely let them know that this is adult content. And although the scenes are from, decades ago, that these issues, try to connect it to issues that either they may be facing or someone that they know may be facing, but to definitely let them know that these issues are still very relevant in our society, particularly violence against women, broken homes, single parenthood, uh, cohabitation, children being born out of wedlock, and homosexuality, the role of the church in society, music, definitely. How does music bring people together? There's a lot. There's a lot going on there. How we use food to kind of pacify ourselves and also to celebrate things. Yeah,
That's
it's a lot.
That sounds
Yeah.
good. That's good.
There's a lot that they could learn from that. Yeah.
That's so true. As you were talking, I was thinking about, just, what's changed since the production of The Color Purple. I mean, we're talking 1985, here it is 30 years later. So in your view, when you think about Black people in movies, society in general, do you see that a lot has changed since The Color Purple? I know it's sort of a broad question, but you
Yeah.
can take that however you wanted to.
I would think so. No, I'm not, like in the arts like that too. But I would think so in terms of opportunities for actors and actresses of color. I look at Tyler Perry, regardless of how I feel about him, Tyler Perry's and other directors of color and just people in front of the camera. So I do think, and on mainstream TV, Thursday night, Shonda Rhimes got it on lockdown, and you didn't see that back then. So, things are definitely changed. Whether or not they've changed drastically, I don't think they've changed drastically. I mean, I don't know about that, but they've definitely changed, and I do see a shift moving in the right direction.
That's a good point.
Good point. How about you?
Well, I have to agree. I think that things aren't where they were in 1985. And then in some respects, I feel there has been forward movement. I don't necessarily know if it's always progress. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when I talk to my students about these kinds of issues, I ask them, is all change progress?
Right.
So it's like this idea we play around with. So, we can definitely say Aunt Jemima's got a perm now. Back in the day, she had the do-rag. She had some weight on her.
Right,
but,
right.
Maybe she was taking yoga, so she looks a lot better.
Yeah, but, she does look a lot younger, right? She got some Botox.
Something happened. So this is kind of one of those things where, if we get into the context of the image, is that really progress? So, and it's one of those things I'm not looking for a hard, definite answer. I'm just looking for some conversation around what do we consider to be progressive change. So, I think, I'm with you. We certainly have more Black folks behind the camera. And sometimes, depending upon what you're watching, you're like, man, is this a good thing?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I guess as some people say, progress is the right to be mediocre, like everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
sad but true.
Yeah, unfortunately. So another thought I had sort of related to our conversation is when you think about just the impact of The Color Purple, And, you know, some people do this with movies like Star Wars or Star Trek. They're sort of like these pearls of wisdom. So, you know, for Star Trek fans, there's this like esoteric knowledge that only other Trekkies seem to understand. Or if you're real big into Star Wars, you know, may the force be with you, and the Jedi's taught him well, whatever. So do you think there's that kind of energy around the color purple, like these little nuggets of wisdom that people pass back and forth through, you know, dialogue in the movie?
Um, hmm. I don't know. I just keep hearing God is trying to tell you something in my head right now. So
Okay.
that could be one. You know, to listen to that voice in you. I know for myself, that is definitely something that I've learned to do over the years. You know, not ignoring that my gut or that inner voice, that God in you. And so, yeah, I think that's for me. I'd have to say that.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. When I think about it, I was thinking of the same thing. And then just the advice that Nettie gives Seeley through the letters, and just, I don't know if it's necessarily a line, but just
Mhm.
sort of the theme that love binds. And so you
Yeah.
see this relationship with the two sisters that, I mean, it stands the test in the movie. So
Yeah, yeah. And I always cry when they reunite, like always.
every time you see it, all 50 times?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it is a powerful film. So if, and this is a big if, let's say that The Color Purple was remade this year, 2015.
Oh God,
Who
with
could
new
you see
characters.
in these roles? I'm sure you've heard about this.
Actually, I haven't.
No?
No, it's like some things should just be left alone.
Okay. So this is like a Marvin Gaye album, one of those
Yeah,
things?
yeah, just leave it alone. Yeah, just
Okay.
leave. I mean, I would watch it, you know, but and I'm sure I would be critical of it. I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of touchy, you know. It's like someone taking your favorite recipe and just messing it all up. And you know what? I do believe in change. You know, I believe in refreshing things. So I can, now that I'm rethinking, I would not be opposed to seeing a remake. It would just need to be really good.
Okay. Okay. So films like Sparkle or any of the remakes, there seem to be quite a few of them lately. But something
I'm
like that,
trying.
do you think
I'm
that
trying to
would
think. I'm trying to
work?
think of one. A remake. Okay, Nutty
Dreamgirls?
Professor, huh?
Okay. I was going to say
Nut-
Dreamgirls.
Okay, a Nutty Professor that just came to me. I like Eddie Murphy's take on it.
Okay.
They're both great. I still love Jerry Lewis's, but I also really love Eddie Murphy's take on it. Um, Dream Girls. I just not really didn't feel Beyonce
Okay.
in the movie, so for me it was like, eh.
I can relate, but my students would not be happy with either of us.
That's all right. They don't know no. That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, I have my challenges with Cadillac Records trying to believe her as Etta James. I was like, y'all
Right.
just don't know what the real one sounds like. But
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it depends. It would have to be really, really good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So one sort of final thought about the film. If you could give a message to not just young girls, but just people in general about the significance of some of the ideas that we're talking about, the
Mhm.
self-care, the mental health, the listening to the inner voice, what would you say to them if you could speak to them about the impact of the color purple related to those ideas?
Um, whew. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you do react to it. And again, no one, or I'll just say it in a positive, your voice is your voice, and we're all created, individually, and no one has we have the right to live at peace within ourselves, with other people. And if you ever feel like you are not being heard, it could be because you teach people how to treat you. And so going back to Celie, even though she felt powerless, she just didn't recognize the power that she innately had until one day it was just awakened and she recognized it and she acted upon it. And so you all have a power in you that is greater than any power that's trying to silence you. And it's up to you to choose to recognize it, cultivate it, love it, nurture it, let it out. And, I guess if you don't feel that now, then that's the work that you need to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was like you planned it. It was written. It was so eloquent.
Oh, thank you. I had to find the right words.
You found them.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for participating in Purple Points, and thank you all for watching and keeping up with our interviews, and we look forward to seeing you in the next edition of Purple Points.
One more thing. I have to make a correction. Yeah, I have to make a correction to the website. I have two blogs, goldasmith.com. That was for another business. And then I have Fit Mommy blog. That is my other blog. And FIT is an acronym for Focused Intentional Transformation. So that's more faith, fitness, food, family, stuff like that. And so if your readers want to connect with me, they should definitely do that over there or on my Facebook page.
Can you give us the Facebook page info? And then just really quickly, talk to us a little bit about the FIT acronym. I know you just explained what it means, but can you give us just a little insight into why that's important?
Sure. Again, because so many times we say we want to do things and then we allow everything under the sun to get in the way. And I always go back to our college, what was it, slogan, what have you,
motto,
find a way and make one. Yeah, thank you, motto, couldn't find that word. Find a way or make one. And I say that all the time to clients, to business prospects, what have you. I'm like, if it is important enough to you, you will find a way or make one, period, no excuses. So if getting fit, if getting healthy is something that you want to do, then you're going to need to focus, and it has to be intentional in order for this transformation to happen. And that just came to me one day. I was just sitting around trying to think about, what I was going to call this blog. And then that just came to be Focused Intentional Transformation.
Wow. And the website, the Facebook address?
Facebook address is Golda Smith, my first name, my last name, 2 page. There are quite a couple of Golda Smiths that pop up on the page, surprisingly. So I have two, my personal page and then my business page. So you can connect with me on either one.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the work you're doing. And I will continue to follow you on Instagram.
Thank you, Akil. Thank you. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Me too. So again, this is Purple Points. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye.